Educator's Edge with me, Lisa Ellum, the Educator's Advocate. This is the podcast where we unpack the art and science of adult learning, share real stories, and explore practical ways to sharpen our skills as teachers, trainers, and coaches of grown-ups.
Welcome to this week's episode of The Educator's Edge. This week, the title of the podcast is called Every Hurt is a Dharma Door. And I'm looking at lifelong learning as a process of evolution where the definition I like to use for lifelong learning is that it's from the womb to the tomb. It's truly lifelong. So we're going to be exploring lifelong learning through one of the most liberating ideas from Larry Rosenberg. Now, he's a Buddhist scholar, and he says that every moment, especially the painful ones, can be a Dharma door, a doorway into deeper awareness, compassion, insight, and personal freedom. So what do we need to remember? We need to remember that lifelong learning isn't a program. It's not a course. It's not a university. It is quite literally from the womb to the tomb. And it starts before we know we are learning. And it continues long after formal education ends. Now, as adults, we are shaped by our relationships, experiences, mistakes, our joys, our disappointments, and everything in between. And lifelong learning spans a lifetime, and it's different. It changes as we get older because we've walked through more Dharma doors. So what is a Dharma door? Dharma doors are the moments that teach us most. You know the ones we'd rather avoid, the hurt, the frustration, failure, confusion, criticism, conflict, all of that stuff. And each one of these doorways can become the teacher if we are willing to pause, to step back, to ask for help, and, sort of say, what is this showing me? What I really liked about this concept of Dharma doors and, hurt and, and how we grow through this discomfort is that it really relates to adult learning. So what are a few Dharma doors that you can think of? There might be the Dharma door of discomfort, the uneasy emotions that arise when we're stretching ourselves or changing or being challenged. Instead of resisting, we can see the discomfort as proof that we've grown, that we've changed, and that, there is this learning process happening within us. What about the Dharma door of knowing yourself? I think this is quite an important one. And my research shows that it was really important for all adult learners, because we often fear as adults getting things wrong. It seems that children are more flexible in their learning. They're more flexible in their self-identity. They don't have that fear of getting things wrong, which seems to happen a little bit more with adults. But we need to embrace this and understanding our unique self. What is it that I need to learn? Am I a kinesthetic learner? Am I, a book and pencil learner? Do I learn best by being lectured to? We're usually a little bit of everything, and it's usually good practice as an educator to include, different ways of learning to get the same concept. And when we look at knowing ourselves, we've we've become comfortable, a little bit more comfortable, with recognizing that mistakes are one of the richest learning resources we have. It gives you so much data and direction about ourselves. It's that self-awareness that becomes critical for adult learning to be fully embodied. The next Dharma Door is the one of community, something else that was very strong in my research. And I like the way that Rosenberg frames this. It fits perfectly. Relationships are mirrors. Students, colleagues, peers reflect back our values, our patterns, our blind spots, our strengths. One of my participants in my doctoral research said that one of the most powerful places to learn was at the water cooler. She talked about the water cooler conversations, the incidental conversations between an adult learner and another adult learner after a class or before a class to consolidate the idea, the thinking, ask questions in a casual and informal, but really quite meaningful way to construct our learning. And the Dharma Door of stillness. I do a lot of clinical teaching, so teaching in the hospitals or other education facilities. But it's still in the classroom and in the workplaces or in the online space and in life generally. That stillness is often undervalued. And yet it's in these moments of stillness or quietness where we integrate the lessons that we've learned. I'm much better at being quiet when I'm walking on the beach. I can still my mind. And I often call the beach my office because that's when I get a lot of processing done and a lot of new ideas once I've dealt with my problems or the challenges, the doors of discomfort, our Dharma doors, that when I've cleared that space, I can still my mind and figure out which direction to go next. And this leads us to the Dharma Door of change, another big finding in my research, that adult learners really need to manage change because we're different. If we're doing a long course or even any course, there's the potential for it to impact us so that we think differently by the end of it. And these new beginnings are really quite powerful teachers. Every transition, every career role, every relationship, seasons of life, they invite us to re-see ourselves. And how powerful is that as we're learning from the womb to the tomb? So what did I learn through my doctoral research? I think my journey, my learning journey, has really reinforced that you don't enter lifelong learning because you want neat answers. Starting a program looks very different to completing a program. And when we enter lifelong learning because we are curious about the world and want to understand life more deeply, then we respond to the challenge with wisdom and develop the courage to grow. We can navigate those rough doors, those rough times. We can navigate the anger and the hurt, the failure and the setbacks through sitting with it. Because these moments have the potential to send you spiraling before they become doorways to a new way to be. Lifelong learning can be passive, it can be active or conscious. It can be accidental or planned, but it happens. When educators and learners link these ideas, we realize that the journey from the womb to the tomb is not about collecting qualifications. It's more about credentialing ourselves as learners. But about cultivating curiosity as well about the world and ourselves. And when we understand ourselves better, we can grow, help others grow. We grow. And as that through our growing process, we can help others to grow, especially if our goal is to teach grown-ups well. Thank you for joining me this week. I hope you have a better week than the English cricket team. Sending blessings.